Hello, this is Bill Bullard with R-CALF USA, the voice of the independent cattle producer in the United States of America. Well, the U.S. Senate was expected to vote on the U.S.-Mexico-Canada Agreement, or USMCA, by the end of the week, but now reports indicate it will likely be next week at the earliest. Meanwhile, R-CALF USA members are making their phone calls to their U.S. senators, urging them to vote no on the USMCA until mandatory country of origin labeling is fully restored for beef. Now, while our earlier calls with the same message did not substantially move the U.S. House of Representatives to hold up passage of the USMCA, they have certainly elevated the country of origin labeling issue, just as the calls right now are elevating the COOL issue in the U.S. Senate. Our members are armed with information, such as that the combination of cattle and beef are the #1 agricultural commodities imported from Canada and Mexico. The $4.1 billion in cattle and beef we import from Canada and Mexico far exceeds the second-place import of malt beverages, with a value of about $3.7 billion. So we're asking our U.S. senators, if NAFTA was a bad agreement that needed to be renegotiated, why didn't our negotiators see fit to make any changes to the trade in cattle and beef, the leading agricultural commodities being imported into our domestic market duty-free from Canada and Mexico? In our recent conversations with congressional members and their staffs, the most common concern expressed is how do we restore COOL for beef when the World Trade Organization has issued a pending ruling granting Canada and Mexico the authority to impose retaliatory tariffs on other U.S. goods if COOL is reenacted. In response to this concern, R-CALF USA is in the process of developing a white paper titled Restoring Mandatory COOL for Beef while Mindful of the WTO's Adverse Ruling. In our current draft, we point out that the WTO arrived at its adverse conclusion that COOL treated imported cattle less favorably than it treated domestic cattle by making three principal findings. First, that the COOL law entails an increased record-keeping burden for imported livestock. Second, the COOL law's labeling scheme resulted in inaccurate labels. And third, the COOL law exempted a large volume of muscle cuts of beef from its scope. Knowing these three issues were the legs that ultimately brought COOL down, we are now formulating our recommendations for correcting each of these shortcomings. We can address the issue of an increased record-keeping burden for imported cattle by eliminating the need for any record-keeping on the part of importers. Indeed, all imported cattle are already required to be permanently marked or identified as to their country of origin. For example, Canadian cattle are branded with a C-open-A-N, and Mexican cattle bear an M brand. Therefore, packers can visually inspect all cattle presented for slaughter for any foreign markings or brands, and if they have foreign markings, then the label must show the animals were born and raised in the corresponding country. If an animal bears no foreign marking, then it can be none other than an animal born and raised right here in the United States of America. The issue of inaccurate labels arose because the COOL law did not allow a label for animals born in a foreign country and raised in two countries before slaughter, such as a label stating born in Canada, raised in Canada and the United States, and slaughtered in the United States. Well, this can be remedied by providing such a label in instances where the purveyor of foreign cattle voluntarily provides the packer with documentation as to when the animals were imported into the United States. This offers flexibility to importers who can then offer this additional information at their discretion. Now, the issue that COOL did not require enough foreign beef to be labeled was highlighted by the WTO's estimate that while 100% of imported cattle had to be tracked according to origin, as much as 67% of the beef from those animals was never required to be labeled, which resulted in an imbalance between the cost of COOL and the benefits bestowed on consumers. Now, this too can be readily fixed by eliminating the exemption for meat that is cooked or smoked and by expanding the definition of retailer to include more than those establishments that purchase more than $230,000 in fresh fruits and vegetables each year. In short, R-CALF USA is committed to restoring mandatory COOL, and we're working aggressively to resolve congressional concerns so independent cattle producers can once again compete effectively in their own market and consumers can choose where they want their beef produced. If you want to support our efforts, I urge you to join with us by going to our website at www.r-calfusa.com or call us at 406-252-2516. We're out of time. We hope you have a productive week. Thank you and goodbye.